What you gonna do, brother?
And we're back. You are listening to the Talking Boxing with Billy C radio show. You're watching us on the Fight Now television channel. And if you don't have the Fight Now channel on your sports channel lineup, then you need to call your local television provider and tell them that you want it. It's that simple. Pick up the phone and call and tell them you want the Fight Now sports channel. Add it to your sports channel lineup. You can get all the information about Fight Now by visiting their website, www.fightnow.com. So we had a little problem here, and it was my fault. Now, this is not happening on the television end, on the Fight Now, which I want to welcome all the Fight Now viewers that are joining us right now. This happened with an online service that we just had. It just blew up, and I'm restoring that right now. So I apologize for that. We're in the middle of doing the mailbags, and hopefully we'll be able to get all of that back up and running very quickly. And it was my error, by the way. I was trying to respond to Dax, and he's in the chat room, and I hit the shutdown button instead. So, it goes to show you that I could be a real idiot at times. But we're reading an email from my man Bjorn, and the second part of the email says, Floyd definitely carried Juan Manuel Marquez. He said in an interview he had such a long day off, he had such a long layoff. He wanted to get some rounds under his belt. I was saying yesterday that I felt 100% sure that Floyd carried Juan Manuel Marquez, and I think it was, and I have no proof of this. This is just my opinion. I think that it was due to the fact that I think it was due to the fact that it was the deal that they made. It was the deal that they made for Floyd to not have to worry about the weigh-in. I think that had something to do with it, and that's just my opinion. So anyway, so he thinks the same thing. He thinks that that it was that he carried him. So looks like we got the other bunch of stuff up. So yeah, it was. Sorry about that. They're all asking what happened to the show. No, it didn't. We didn't lose it. What happened is I hit the wrong button, and we were still broadcasting. It's just that you guys missed it. Sorry about that. The second part of Bjorn's email says, but the first thing that comes to mind with Floyd is his preparedness. He's always prepared. He's ready to fight every time. And I don't think that there's someone else in boxing who wants to win as badly as he does. You see, now I agree with that. And I wish that we're probably going to miss a lot of that first part of the show on some of the replays. But I wish that given quality would. But all you premium podcast subscribers, you're not going to miss anything. You got that. You're on a separate system. So, but so it's worth the $15 a year, man. But anyway. This is I have to agree with my man Bjorn. I think that if we think of one thing that we can, in my opinion, that I remember, if somebody mentions Floyd Mayweather to me, besides him beating on his wife or girlfriend or whatever, and burning $100 bills and doing all those things I said yesterday, I agree with Bjorn. I will give Floyd all the credit in the world about being prepared and coming in shape. I mean, I don't know if anybody prepares himself as much as well as Floyd does. Floyd is constantly in shape all year round. This isn't a guy that balloons up and then gets into shape for fights. He's always looking good. So this is a great point. I will definitely admit that when it's all said and done, and I think of Floyd Mayweather, that is going to be one thing I think of. My point was not conditioning. It was more excitement in a fight. We mentioned fighters' names. You can mention Sugar Ray Robinson, Sugar Ray Leonard, Rocky Marciano, Jack Dempsey, Joe Louis, Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson. You can go on and on and on. Marvin Hagler, Tommy Hearns. You could go on, and I mention a name, and all of a sudden, bam, something's going to pop into your mind. You say Joe Louis, maybe the Billy Conn knockout. First thing that comes to mind. There's so many great things. Mike Tyson, to me, Trevor Berbick knockout always comes to mind. Trevor Berbick doing the Billy C shuffle after 9-10 scotches. I love it. Sugar Ray Leonard. I think of the, with Sugar Ray Leonard, I hate to say it, but I do think of the Marvin Hagler fight only because it was such a controversial fight. And then Marvin Hagler, when you think of Hagler, the first fight that pops in my mind actually is the Tommy Hearns fight. Just the list goes on, and you think of those fights, and you say to yourself, man, what a great fight that was, and you say Floyd, and at least me, it's like, oh yeah, I remember the Juan Manuel Marquez fight. Floyd was such a tactician in that fight. Oh, he rolled in that shoulder roll. It was just fantastic. He just was so crazy. He just was so defensively sound, and it was just like, come on, man. I want to see a little action. That whole fight against Ricky Hatton, what do we remember? We remember the knockout. You remember the other 9 rounds or 10 rounds, whatever the hell it was, what fight? I can't even remember what round it got knocked out. I also remember that Cortez kept separating him every time Ricky Hatton moved in. Whatever. Hey, remember the fight with Floyd Mayweather and Antonio Margarito? Oh, that's right. He never fought him. And then he says, lastly, I'm looking forward to do great things in the sport. Hopefully he doesn't become the next Sergio Martinez due to a lack of promotion. What do you think? I've said this before many times, and, that is the problem. I think that Andre Ward has all the skills. There's no question about that. He has all the skills. He's young. He's got a great attitude. Great, person for the sport. What a great representative for professional boxing. I think that his downfall won't be because of his boxing ability. I think it's going to be because of lack of promotion. He's with a promoter that just refuses to spend money and promote this kid. Aside from his fights, and if he didn't get on that Super 6, I'll tell you right now, if Andre Ward didn't get on the Super 6 tournament, how much would we know about this guy? Honestly, how much would we know about this guy if he didn't get on the Super 6 tournament? So, I think a great example is Sergio Martinez. I've said that many, many times. Here you got a fighter that's arguably a pound-for-pound fighter. Many people have him in their pound-for-pound list, and not many people know who the hell he is, because of lack of promotion. Now, and I put a lot of blame on Captain Lou DiBella, but maybe it was before Lou. Maybe Lou, inherited a guy that was already, which we know, he inherited a guy that had already been around for some time, and nobody knew who he was then. So, but great point there. We have another one from my man Bobby, and then we got one more after this. Bobby says, I agree, Marquez does look top-heavy. As I was watching the fight, I kept thinking he looks like a Mexican Roger Mayweather. With that said, Rios' style is tailor-made for Marquez. Marquez fights best when his opponent pressures and throws and picks him apart and ends up destroying them. Happens every time in the end. Not saying Rios at 140 won't be a different guy, because he will, but I do think he will look filled out and a bit more chiseled. Maybe soon we could see Rios versus Ortiz, because he's so heavy. Who wins? Well, first of all, the comment about Juan Manuel Marquez and Bam Bam Rios, I like the matchup. I just think that Juan Manuel Marquez looks a little slower than he did. Being a good counterpunch, what makes Floyd so effective is his hand speed. He sees the opening and bam, the punch is delivered and lands. While his opponent's delivering a punch to him. Juan Manuel Marquez at his best in his prime, when his speed was topped out, he was able to do that as well. I don't see that happening now. I saw him take a lot of punches from Fedchenko the other night. So the only guy that couldn't hit him was I guess Pacquiao. But I don't know if he's maybe a young Juan Manuel Marquez Rios is tailor-made for, but I don't know about now. I think the pressure, constant pressure, and taking that many shots is going to wear even a Rios down. So, The other part, as far as Rios against Victor Ortiz, I don't think Rios is going to be able to move up that much, is he? I mean, he's a lightweight now, which he's really not. He's going to move up to junior welter. Maybe he eventually gets to welterweight. He is only 26, I believe. So maybe that's something in the future. But Ortiz, he moved up from junior welterweight to welter. He looks pretty big at welter. I just think it's timing with those two. But theoretically, I think that they would make a good fight. So I agree with you there, Bobby. Thanks for the email. And finally, my man Alex T, the other Alex, he likes to be called. He says, I'll be honest with you, I didn't watch the fight. He's referring to the Juan Manuel Marquez fights. He says, I wasn't paying $45 for it, and I watched pretty much everything. So I'm interested in seeing how many buys the fight did, because I'm guessing not that many people really saw it, yet everyone is jumping up and down screaming about a robbery. Look, you have hardcore listeners, so I'm sure all those fans saw it. But I have heard from more than a handful of reporters and podcasters, etc., whose opinions I do respect, that this was a tough fight to score, and while most agree Abril deserved the win, it's not the highway robbery that a lot of people are making it out to be. My thoughts. I said that Monday. I wasn't surprised, and I thought, Johnny Robbins was vocal on the show yesterday, and said that the day before he felt that Abril didn't even come close to winning. He felt that running away and barely landing any shots shouldn't have justified a win for him. Which is contradicting the majority of the people who feel that he indeed won the fight. I think what swayed a lot of people, to be honest with you, was the commentating. Those guys took a platform early in that fight and just kept carrying it. And, that's why sometimes, we find here that we, like to watch the fights without the sound. I got in the habit of doing that because I couldn't stand listening to these guys anymore. The Lampley with the punch stats and dictating, letting the punch stat dictate, how he speaks about the fights and everything else. And the same thing is said about Friday Night Fights. Teddy Atlas, he's funny, and I like hearing, his analogies and stuff. But the thing I can't stand is when he starts picking on a fighter for reasons that we know behind the scenes. It's because maybe the fighter didn't hire him as a trainer or something, And Joe Tessitore, who's a very talented broadcaster, is just like his yes man. Whatever Teddy says, Joe says it about 10 seconds later, and he switches the words around a little bit, And I just got so sick of that and HBO that I listen to a lot of fights now without the sound, and I see a different perspective of the fight. So, and when you're live, you're the only stuff you're seeing and hearing is you're seeing the fight and you're hearing, punches that are landing, and you're hearing comments from ringside people. You're not hearing what the commentators are saying. He also says, I really hope Michael Casitas retires. He should have beaten Casamayor for the lineal title, but he let that one slip out of his hands. That was an amazing fight, and you got to give Casamayor all the credit for that one. This kid has been in some great fights, and he's going to have some serious problems in a few years with his health if he keeps on fighting, but we all know he will. I'm guessing he drops back down in weight, and we will see him back in the ring again. I hope he drops down in weight because he looked extremely small. He looked like he had no pop on behind his punches, zilch. And this is a guy that's known for accumulation punching, which knocks his opponents out. He looked like he just couldn't even stop Menza in his tracks. Couldn't even even put a little bit of hurt on him. And I would agree with you, Alex. I think that this kid needs to move back down to lightweight. He says, remember Angel Manfredi? He reminds me of Casitas, a top 10 fighter who had some big wins but never could win the title. I saw him on TV a while back, and he could barely talk. I'm afraid that will be Casitas in a few years. Could be. Professional athletes a lot of times never know when to say when. We had some fight results, and that's done with the emails. Thanks for all of that. Thanks for reminiscing about Victor Ortiz and Floyd Mayweather. All that happy stuff. and given quality. I hope we got the two pieces of the show is going to be up for you. I know where you like to watch it, and unfortunately, we may miss that first section of the show. So hopefully you get to hear my comments, because it's just you got to stop. You got to spit out some of that Kool-Aid, man. Just don't swallow. Okay, stop swallowing, given. But anyway. Toronto, there was some fights last night, and Adam Turpish. Now, Adam Turpish, I wish we had Johnny Robbins around today, because he would straighten this out. Now, Adam Turpish was an amateur fighter who did very well, and then ended his amateur career and started to become a promoter. Well, he's kind of like promoting in boxing now. Now, I don't know if he promoted this particular show from Toronto yesterday, but he was on the card, and he was the main event. And he's in the junior middleweight division, and he's now 11-0 with 8 knockouts when he stopped Darrell Cunningham at 1 minute and 30 seconds of the 5th round. Now, Darrell Cunningham is a pretty decent fighter. He's now got a record of 25 wins and 4 losses. So Adam Turpish gets his biggest win of his career. So we'll see what happens. Now, this was, one important thing about Darrell Cunningham. He got knocked out by Adam Turpish, but, if you look at this guy's record, he's got 29 professional fights under his belt. He's only been stopped twice, and once was last night. So, and the other guy was Anthony Durrell. So, I mean, he's no slouch, that's for sure. There was another couple of fights on this card, and Steve Franek, he improved to 8-0 with a draw, 5 knockouts when he stopped his opponent, Anthony Russell, at 2 minutes and 45 seconds of round number 8. Russell drops to 16 wins, 4 losses, and a draw. And Phil Rose improved to 4 wins, 1 loss, and a draw when he won a 4-round decision over Danny Nedzer in their fight. It was a 4-rounder. So 38-38 was the way one's judge saw it, and the other two had it as a shutout at 40-35. You can't mess around in a 4-round fight, that's for sure. Well, the big news yesterday was that Fernando Guerrero, which was the big news about 10 days ago when we found out that he was going to be on the Showbox card this Friday, and it was supposed to be part of a triple header. It was going to have Fernando Guerrero taking on a fighter named Chris Fitzpatrick, Chris the Ghost, the Irish Ghost, I should say. That was supposed to, I believe they were going to open up the broadcast. Then we were going to see Urslandi Lara against Ronald Hearns, which I kind of like that matchup. And then the main event was Jermaine Taylor against Caleb Truax. Well, now we have another injury. And just like Andre Berto and Dax Khan, Fernando Guerrero ripped his bicep, tore his bicep, and is on the shelf. I know Dax Khan, he ripped his bicep by pumping all the iron that he pumps every day. I mean, this guy's just can't get him out of the gym. He's constantly pumping iron. He's got muscles in his poop, for God's sakes. But I tell you, a lot of these guys that are getting these tears like that, are they lifting too many weights? I mean, Dax Khan, he's a weightlifter, but these guys, should they be lifting that many weights? I mean, how else do you rip a bicep? I don't know, but I can just imagine how painful it is. And when I was talking about pulling hamstrings and tearing hamstrings, not pulling, tearing is like one of the most painful things I went through, with the exception of a broken rib, a cracked rib, I should say. That's about it for me. I couldn't imagine a torn bicep, but that's what's happened. The broadcast is going to continue to go on. It's just not a triple header, no mo. It's a double header now, and it starts on Friday. So, and speaking about injuries, speaking about withdrawing from fights, Nathan Cleverly withdraws from his fight against Robin Krasnicki. It was determined that he got sick. He had a viral infection, and he had to pull out of that fight. You see, now, in this case, and I'm not doubting Guerrero, but in this case, you say to yourself, is he really sick? Is he not sick? Nathan Cleverly is on a fast rise to the top. And I'm not saying that Krasniqi is a bum or anything, because he's a good fighter. 37 wins, 2 losses. He's got 13 knockouts. He's a good opponent for Nathan Cleverly. Nathan Cleverly should beat this guy, but he's not a bum. I mean, he's not a bum. So in this particular case, and he's not too good either. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's not. It's not like Nathan Cleverly is having second thoughts about beating this guy. I think that his team feels very comfortable with this fight. And, by the way, they had it approved by the WBO, so there was a lot on the line for Cleverly in this fight. I have a tendency to believe Nathan Cleverly in this case, that he had a viral infection. Now, that's something I don't know if you can prove or not. I'm sure that because it's an infection, it shows up in some kind of a test that he had with the doctors, and the doctors could, definitely prove it. So, it's unfortunate for Nathan Cleverly. I hope they just reschedule the fight. I hope they just reschedule it, because I'm a Nathan Cleverly fan, and I want to see him rise to the top. And I think that Robin Krasniqi is a good test and a good gauge to see him as he rides up. But according to Frank Warren, who's the promoter, even though this was the main event, even though this was a world title event, and even though there was a little bit of backdrop going on here with this card, because at the location where they had this was supposed to be at the Royal Albert Hall, there hadn't been a pro boxing event there for over 13 years, and despite losing the draw, and despite losing the world title and everything else, Frank Warren said the show will go on. He says Billy Joe Sanders, who's a middleweight prospect, he's undefeated at 12-0. He was in the 2008 Olympics for Britain, becomes the main event, and his opponent is Tony Hill, who's 8-2, and the vacant English title will be on the line there. So we will wait and see what happens there. So the show is going to go on. Sam Webb and Matthew Hall are going to be getting it on too for the British Junior Middleweight title. So there'll be plenty of other quality shows, quality fights that are going to be on that card. And speaking of quality, joining us right now isn't given quality. No, it's my man. It's my man Alex Pierpaoli. What's up, brother?
Good morning, Billy C. How you doing?
Oh, not too bad. Not too bad. We're talking about some of the stuff going on. First, we had our little glitch here, and it was called the Billy C glitch today. I'm sitting here trying to respond to Dax because I'm, trying to do a million things at once. I'm in the chat room. I'm working the board. I'm, looking good in front of the camera. And what do? I hit the shutdown button and blow away everything on the internet side. No chat room, no broadcast, no recording. I'm like, oh man, one little button. I need to get one of them there Macs, don't I?
That's right. Yeah, you gotta get yourself an Apple.
Yeah. But, let's talk a little bit. We got a couple minutes here before I got to take a break. You got to call a little earlier so we can get your thoughts on some of these fights, man. But, Juan Manuel Marquez this past weekend, I don't know if you saw the fight or not. Did you get a chance to see it while you were away?
Yes, I did see. I didn't see Alvarado Herrera, the whole thing. I saw, the last round of it. But I did see Rios Abril, or Abril Rios, as perhaps it should be, and Marquez Fedchenko.
Well, let's talk real quick. First of all, the Alvarado fight was the best one of the whole night.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
I mean, it was, I think Herrera beats the kid if he fights a little smarter instead of going toe-to-toe with that guy. But as far as Juan Manuel Marquez, my quick opinion was I think he looked too big. I think he looked like he put on too much weight, upper body. He looked like a heavyweight from his waist up. His biceps looked huge. I mean, he just looked like he was in fantastic shape. And then from the waist down, he looked like a little bantamweight. His legs were skinny. His ankles were small. And he seemed to be a little sluggish in the ring. Do you think this weight is maybe too much for him?
I heard some of what you said yesterday or Monday rather, and I do think that you're right that he did look definitely much thicker in the torso and a little slower of foot. Now, I think some of that could be that he's 38, but yeah, perhaps it is the weight. at the same time, I do think that he wasn't in there against a slouch. And I think in that sense, given his age and the fact that, he's been fighting for a long time now, I thought he did look pretty good. I mean, I did think that I think he's still deserving to be mentioned in the top as one of the top fighters of the game. And I did think in terms of, what we usually see from him, I did think that I thought he was getting close to a KO. And I think the reason why we didn't see the KO, and I think you do have a point here, it could be that he had a hard time walking Fedchenko down. So that would speak to the legs of an older guy. Maybe the lightweight Marquez would have had an easier time, cutting up the ring and getting to him and closing off some of the escape routes that Fedchenko used, especially in those last couple rounds. Because for a while there, with the body punching, and he was landing. I really love the Nacho Beristain trained fighters. The Marquez brothers. Their combination punching is just beautiful. It's really poetry in motion. And there was times where it looked like, okay, in my notes, I think it was as early as the 6th that I said, it looks like Juan Manuel Marquez is going to score a KO here tonight. But then as it got later, Fedchenko was able to put a little distance between them every time he got hurt. And you're right, it could be that he just doesn't have the spring in those legs at this weight and at this age that he used to.
Yeah, and it was more the way his arms were. It just looked like he's bulked up too much in the upper body, and like he's walking. I call it the old drying deodorant under the armpit move. And your arms are like sticking out a little bit. That's why he kept walking back to the corner. And for a guy like a lot of our listeners pointed out today, for a guy that really banks on his counterpunching ability. That looks like it's going to be affected by that right away. Hey, in about a minute or so, what did you think about the Abril fight? I mean, a lot of people are crying highway robbery. I knew while I was watching that fight that it was going to be a tough one to score, and I was not shocked at either if Abril would have won it or Bam Bam Rios would have won it. I personally thought that Abril squeaked it out. I thought it was closer than people are saying. I definitely thought it was closer than the announcing team. What do you think?
I think it probably was closer than the announcers made it seem. And I think that's – I don't think that in that sense that it was necessarily a bad call by the announcers. I think that I think it was Eric Raskin of ESPN. I read an article by him yesterday. He mentioned groupthink, and I think that that's what kind of happens sometimes in these broadcasts where everybody on the commentating crew gets on to like this one aspect of the fight, and they just keep pounding it, and whether they're wrong or not, they don't entertain any other possibilities, and I think that's kind of what happened there. So the story from them was Abril's running away with it, and I think that they probably should have been a little more open-minded to the idea that Rios was landing some body shots. I don't agree with Johnny Robbins as much as I respect his opinion. I did think that Abril was even beating Rios at his own game. He was beating him in close at times. But he was fighting a crafty, kind of a stinker of a fight. We've seen this a couple times now. I mean, maybe it's not the most thrilling thing. We've seen this with Carlos Molina as well. Maybe it's not the most thrilling fight type of fighter, but it's a style, Yes, sometimes they can be reprimanded for holding, and maybe Abril should have been. But I thought Abril won. I did not score it round by round, but to me it looked like Rios was doing okay at times, but I don't think he had the gas, and you got to think that was the weight. I really see him as being his own worst enemy.
Yeah, no, and it's funny because if Floyd Mayweather was fighting the way Abril was, that would be considered science. It would be considered great. I mean, obviously he's not as clinchy and holdy the way Abril was. I think it would have been a simple fight to score if Abril would have thrown 2 more punches instead of throwing a 2-punch combination. If he threw a 4 or 5-punch combination and then got out of the way, he wins easily. I think the fact that he was only throwing 2 punches at a time and then getting out of the way kind of made it made it closer because Rios, we saw on some camera angles that, when he was throwing those punches, it was landing on the glove of Abril. Now, depending upon where the judge was sitting, he may have thought that punch landed, and that would be the result of, that could have been the reason why the result was the way it was,
Right, and I think the other thing that people need to remember is Vegas traditionally likes the pressure, aggressive fighter. And I think that, that's not always the case, but I think a lot of times you do see that. And I was specifically thinking of, because Jerry Roth's card was the one that surprised me, is that, he's a very good
Me too.
Veteran judge.
Yeah.
But I remember when, and it was Mike Katz who gets into the Hall of Fame this year, was an article that he wrote in coverage of the Vernon Forrest Ricardo Mayorga rematch. And that was a fight that was pretty close, and the decision went to Mayorga largely because of pressure and effective aggression, even though a lot of people did think, myself included, that Forrest won. And in Katz's article, he actually met up with Jerry Roth in the parking lot and talked to him, and Roth was upset, and he said, I think I got it wrong tonight. So there are times that, these judges are fallible, and I think that, his card, I believe, was 115-113. That's a 7 rounds to 5 fight. So, yeah, it's not a robbery. It was a close fight. It happens in boxing. I mean, people who, especially on Twitter, you see so many people saying, "Oh, I'll never watch the sport again." Well, then go away. If you can't handle a close, bad decision, they're going to happen. And I really think it's not a travesty. It was unfortunate, but it's not a robbery.
Pierpaoli, would you stop chasing boxing fans away? What is it with you, man? Listen, just please, I want everyone just to listen to Alex until he says just go away if you're not a diehard fan like us. He feels there's no room for the marginal boxing fan in our sport, and I definitely disagree because we need you guys.
So fickle. I mean, what do they want? They want every fight to look like Hagler Hearns. That just doesn't happen.
I know.
There are fighters who do fight in like little stinker style. There are the Sammy Angets out there, and those guys can be great sometimes too.
No, hey, listen, man. One of the guys I can't stand most of all, Bernard Hopkins, made a career of it. I mean, let's face it, right? I mean, he did.
Don't get me started.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is he made a career of it. I mean, even in his second part of his career, even a guy like James Toney, he's doing the same thing. I mean, these guys aren't exciting, and hey, for the most part, neither's Floyd. Floyd, in my opinion, he's not exciting, but he takes it to a different level with the science or anything else. Hey, listen, we're not taking a break because of the technical issue I had before, even though it didn't affect Fight Now, so they're probably going to take a break. But I wanted to continue this. This is a good conversation, but let's talk about our blast from the past today. George Dixon, and our blast from the past is being brought to us by the International Boxing Organization, where their computerized ranking system is second to none. Check it out, www.iboboxing.com. And we got former world champion George Dixon. He's not only a multi-division world champ, but he's also a boxing Hall of Famer. He also has the distinction of being the first black man to win a world title, at least by the International Boxing Hall of Fame's records. What do you think? Is that true or what?
Yeah, that's what I found too. And he was not African American; he was African Canadian.
Then all bets are off, man. We don't care about Hey, if you're not African American, we don't care about you African Canadians, man. I mean, come on. I'm only kidding. Hey, one thing that we got to talk about with this guy, before. Well, I know you got your whole schmeal, but I just got to jump right to it. Talk about his world title. 70 rounds he fights with 2-ounce gloves. Now, this was also during a time when they were still fighting in bare knuckles, right?
You know, he seemed to straddle the transition because he actually was part of a carnival of champions when it was a series of fights over a couple of days, and one of them was John L. Sullivan versus Jim Corbett, which a lot of people think of as the sort of the transition, the watershed fight between the two ages.
Well,
so, and he fought the day before that fight. He fought a fighter named Jack Skelly, and so he really was right on the cusp of. I mean, the thing that's fascinating about this guy is that he really was a pioneer in a lot of ways. There's so many firsts. Both that he scored and logged as records, as well as firsts in terms of inventions that occurred during his career, and that was pretty fascinating.
Well, give us some examples. Don't leave us hanging out there, Pierpaoli.
All right, I'll get into it. I was away this weekend in Chicago, went to visit the brother and my nephew, and so I didn't do quite as much primary source research, which, of course, is always the best when you go to the newspaper articles of the age. But the thing that was really cool about this is I got to read Mike Glenn's article from the book that we were both in, Billy C., The First Black Boxing Champions by Colleen Aycock and Mark Scott, which was released last year. Hopefully your listeners have bought that. If they haven't,
they could get it.
They should. It's from McFarland Publishers.
Yeah, you could get wait, let me give a plug. If you want to get the book that Alex and myself is in, just go to our website, www.billycboxing.com, under the book club. You can also get our own movie stars copy of his movie right here, Alex Pierpaoli in Family Secret. Gotta watch it. Alex does a award-winning performance there as Uncle Gary. Oh, maybe I shouldn't give it away. Go ahead. Finish talking about George.
But yeah, Mike Glenn wrote about. He has an excellent piece in there on George Dixon, which I really enjoyed, and I highly recommend. But George Dixon, he was born July 29th, way back in 1870, in Africville, Nova Scotia, which was a black community up there in the Nord country of Canada, and Dixon's nickname was Little Chocolate, and he was 5'3.5" tall, and he fought as a paperweight, which I believe we've changed that division's title to flyweight or even strawweight, but back then we're dealing with only 8 divisions rather than the 17 there are today. So he fought as a paperweight, a bantamweight, and a featherweight. And by 1889, they were calling him the new Black Wonder and comparing him to heavyweight Peter Jackson. He could hit with terrible force for a man of his weight, but he really, like Joe Gans, he almost developed his own style and, developed a style that we see rather common today, and that is the sort of slick, defensive-minded, great left jab, that kind of a circling, good foot movement type style. And the other thing that he definitely was, he enjoyed the glamorous life. He made a lot of money and lived fast and partied, and was very generous with his friends. And like so many fighters before and since, that eventually led to his downfall. But one of the things that was fascinating was in 1890, he traveled to England to fight for the world's featherweight title, and he won, defeating Edwin Wallace via 18th round knockout. And with that win, Dixon had done what Tom Molyneux, Bill Richmond, John L. Sullivan had all failed to do, and that's go overseas as a challenger and come back as a champion.
Well, I tell you, my man got robbed. He was big. Molyneux got robbed. He should have come back here as a champ, but that's a story that will be released soon. But anyway, his fight that he had, the 70 rounder, is the one that kills me. It goes down as a draw. On the books, it shows up. It took place in Boston in 1890 against Cal McCarthy, and it goes down in the books. If you punch it up, it'll show up as a draw, 0 rounds, right? But the fight went 70 rounds, and we're talking about 3-minute rounds here. We're not talking about the old bare knuckle days when it was you get knocked down, that's the end of a round. So a round could last 10 minutes or it could last 30 seconds. We're talking about 70 rounds. And finally, I think everyone just got bored. It was supposed to be a fight to the finish, and nobody was getting finished. And that, I think, is just speaks volumes. I don't think there was ever a fight that long again after that. I think that they, like you mentioned, with the glove rules, even though they were only 2-ounce gloves, they were fought with gloves nonetheless. One other thing I wanted to point out and ask you about was that in 1893, now this goes into his first part of his career, in 1893, he fought 17 times. Now, that's amazing in itself by today's standards if you think of a fighter fighting that often in one year period. But what amazed me was one specific month in that year, and it was the month of February. He fought 7 of those 17 times throughout that whole year in the 1 month. And yeah, you don't need a calculator to figure out that he fought a couple of back-to-back fights. I mean, one day he fights one guy, the next day he fights another. What I said earlier in the show, Alex, is that, although I give these guys a lot of credit for fighting as often as they did, these matches had to be similar to what we see today as sparring sessions, because how could these guys physically do that?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. Although you don't want to take away from the accomplishment. I do think that you're right. Kind of what we were talking about last week is that I think the modern day fighter spends a lot more time sparring in the gym, away from the eyes of the public, whereas back then they seemed to do their learning in the ring against live opponents, and that month of February in 1893. I mean, that's just remarkable, and this is really why in order to really get a feel for the sport, you really need to look at the history of it, because that's just amazing to look at all those bouts that he had, just one after the other. I mean, we're talking the 21st. One of them, there's 2 fights in one day.
I know.
So, I mean, it is pretty incredible. But yeah, we are talking about 3-minute rounds, 1-minute rest. So, in that sense, these are real fights. It wasn't like, the rules were adapted slightly at all. These were, maybe, you could get into the whole thing about the modern athlete versus the turn-of-the-century athlete, nutrition and all that kind of thing. Just when you look at Olympic records from that age compared to today, you kind of figure, okay, well, there suggests that the modern athlete is stronger and better. But because boxing is, in some ways, such a basic sport, I'm not sure it does apply in the same way to boxing.
This guy, you said he was the first in a lot of things. A lot of people don't understand. We always go back and we say, in my opinion, in most people's opinion, Sugar Ray Robinson was the greatest boxer of all time. Well, this guy, George Dixon, was one of these early pioneers, so to speak, with counterpunching and footwork and all of this. And guys like Sugar Ray Robinson didn't just all of a sudden wake up one day and have all these skills. They had to emulate someone. And these real early pioneers that are virtually forgotten are those guys that they emulated. And I'm glad that we talk about these guys because I believe that boxing fans, even the marginal ones, Alex, should know this kind of stuff,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, this guy, he may have invented shadow boxing. And even the double-end bag was something he used that people before him weren't using as a training instrument.
Well, I know that the best thing that the cornermen liked when it was invented was ice and plastic bottles, because they had to carry around those glass bottles filled with whatever was filled with. And some of these fights that were outside, I mean, after 20 rounds, I mean, how refreshing could that drink of water be? I mean, come on, especially when we talk about those fights in the deserts and everything else. Hey, just to wrap George Dixon up, another amazing feat is that he fought from 1986. It was his first on the books fight as a professional. Many believe that he could have fought as many 600 to 800 fights in his career. Many that weren't recorded, like those 2 fights in a day and day after day. But he continued his career pretty much nonstop until 1906. He also died at a young age. So I got to throw that to you, man. What happened?
Well, one of the things that he did have to battle, not only, the best of these bantamweight and featherweight divisions, but we're talking about institutionalized segregation, at least in this country, that's for certain. In 1896, remember, the Supreme Court had the case Plessy versus Ferguson, which established separate but equal, that as long as if there was a white water fountain and a black water fountain, that was just fine. So the amount of racism that he had to deal with was enormous, and one of the other things that just the crowds could be so hostile that he had to stay away from the ropes and had to fight inside smaller and smaller concentric circles, and that actually probably did affect his style, because there would be people outside the ropes trying to hit him with clubs or to try to grab his leg to try to trip him up while he was fighting. And I think one of the things that was fascinating, as he was part of a vaudeville act, so he was a bit of an entertainer as his career was winding down. Like I said, he did like the glamorous life, so he did probably spend a lot of the money that he made in the ring. And from that era, remember, John L. Sullivan was someone who, during his career, had a lot of, dealt with the perils of drink. And when we did a blast on him, remember we talked about how he had to get chained up during training to keep him away from the bars. Well, during Sullivan's career, he had drawn the color line, had been a racist. Maybe racist is too strong a term, but he certainly drew the color line. But afterwards, he became a teetotaler and actually befriended Dixon and helped him financially after boxing when Dixon was broke and basically homeless. But yeah, eventually he was found basically unresponsive in the street and was brought to the hospital, George Dixon, and he died. It seemed to be of a heart condition. Rheumatism was where I saw it defined in one place, but then a heart condition somewhere else. I couldn't find an obituary, but like I said, I didn't have as much time as I usually look. But in terms of greatness, the International Boxing Resource Organization has him ranked at 7th all-time bantamweights and 12th all-time featherweights.
Well, the story, the demise sounds like he lingered on for years and years, but the case was he died when he was 37.
Yeah,
37 years old. So he went from basically rags to riches, back to rags, and then in the ground.
Exactly.
It's a shame.
Bad.
But
a lot of these, we see that a lot of these guys, that their rise is meteoric and their fall is meteoric.
Yeah. Well, he was basically on the books as the world bantamweight champion in 1890. He became the world featherweight champion for 1891 through 1897, and then he regained it from 98 to early 1900. You mentioned those rankings. Well, Nate Fleischer said he was the greatest all-time bantamweight ever. He got that accolade. And one thing I wanted to mention, he was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 1990. But Dave Murphy just enlightened me, because I noticed a note here that he was elected into the Ring Boxing Hall of Fame in 1956, and I was wondering what the Ring Boxing Hall of Fame was. Well, apparently, my man Dave Murphy looked it up for us real quick, Alex, and he said that the Ring magazine had their own Hall of Fame. And they ceased working with that and handed over all their inductees, I guess, to the International Boxing Hall of Fame. So a little tie there. But George Dixon, he was born in 1870, died in 1908. He boxed 1,632 rounds that they recorded as a professional with a 23% knockout ratio, 5'3.5", like Alex said. 65 wins as a pro with 36 knockouts. He had 30 losses, only stopped 6 times, 48 draws, and then a slew of fights that didn't even get recorded. So George Dixon, he's definitely a blast from the past. Former world champion and Hall of Famer. Great job, as usual, Alex. Let's talk a little more about Marquez and Abril and some fights that are going to be taking place this week, since I got you on the line. First and foremost, you didn't get the chance to see the fight between Casitas and Albert Mensah, right?
No, I did not. But my brother did see it, and he was telling me that he thinks it looks like it could be over for Casitas, at least as a real viable contender.
Well, he shouldn't have moved up. He shouldn't have moved. I think he should have stayed in the lightweight division. He just seemed way smaller, and he seemed like he had absolutely no pop behind his punches. And we know that the guy's got power in the smaller division, but obviously moving up one weight class, he just seemed like a different fighter.
Wow. Yeah, I did TiVo it, so I'm going to have to check it out. That's too bad because, he did as much as Abril, Molina, those kind of guys, people don't enjoy watching their style. Casitas certainly had a very crowd-pleasing style, so that's unfortunate if he's going to be fading away here.
Now, as far as Juan Manuel Marquez, we talked about him, and the rumor has it that we're all wondering who's he going to fight next, and they had discussed that the possibility of him fighting Bam Bam Rios maybe in July. I just have this strange feeling that he's going to do his swan song. He's going to ride off into the sunset against Eric Morales if he can't make another Pacquiao fight. But all of a sudden in the news this morning, I see that they're talking about a possible fight against Paul McCluskey. What do you think about that? I mean, my whole point, and the reason why I keep asking about Juan Manuel Marquez is because, in my opinion, now don't get me wrong, I like Juan Manuel Marquez. I think that, somebody made a statement, I think it was one of the broadcasters, that said the minute he hangs up his gloves, they're going to, brush off a spot for him in the Hall of Fame. I agree with that. I think he's going to be there. But, you got to know when to say when. I mean, I think one of the worst things for an athlete in any sport, but especially boxing, is to push it too long, because we always have those last memories. I mean, even a guy like Mike Tyson. You talk to people about Mike Tyson now. I was a huge Mike Tyson fan. I have all these great memories of him just dominating. But, the ones that stick out in your mind is him trying to put that mouthpiece back in against Douglas, about the knockout against Lennox Lewis. I mean, you just have a tendency to remember those last images you saw. And I'd hate to have Juan Manuel Marquez have that kind of blemish on such a storied career.
Yeah, I hear you. Unfortunately, like we find every week, that tends to be the tradition. The guys fight on too long, but that doesn't make it any more palatable. That's for sure. I think one of the things that I think may have had an impact on this weekend is the idea that they were sort of grooming Rios for a shot at Marquez. And the fact that Rios couldn't make 135 and didn't seem to care about it, quite frankly. I don't know how you can get 2 hours to try to cut 2 pounds and come back 2 pounds heavier. If that was the case, to me, that's one of the things also that...
What do you mean, Alex? That happens to me all the time. Come on, man.
I know I could gain 2 pounds in 2 hours, but not if I was trying to lose it. I don't know. That just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, unless
he's got his eyes and his mind on bigger things. And to me, that's what it kind of reminded me of Felix Sturm, Oscar De La Hoya, where Sturm came in and was there and he upset the apple cart, at least it looked like it. But then when the scores came down, he didn't, and they protected the future fight against De La Hoya's fight against Hopkins by not letting Oscar go in there with a blemish, losing to Felix Sturm. I think, people certainly, that is something that I thought of right away when Abril did not get the decision. And you do have to wonder about that. I think Rios, I think Marquez beats him, quite frankly, because I think Marquez just has, I always tend to like the guy with the more skill than the guy with more thrills.
Marco, you think Rios, you think Juan Manuel Marquez beats Rios?
Definitely.
See, now,
I think comparatively, Rios is a primitive to Marquez. I mean, Marquez, unless he gets old in that ring, and it is possible, like you were saying about his legs at 140. If they fight at 140, it certainly is possible that Marquez could get old. But first of all, Rios takes a hell of a lot of punishment. Marquez would be able to hit him easy. The only thing that I think could be a factor is that if Marquez couldn't hurt him, and if those old legs had a hard time getting him out of harm's way when Rios is going to make it a close fight. Marquez has always liked to bang to some degree because he is such a great counterpuncher. I think that could be pretty dangerous against a big, strong guy like Rios. But as we saw Saturday night, if Rios is depleted, he's not a hard puncher. He's a pressure puncher. He's a volume puncher. And I think that kind of a style against Marquez, I think Marquez should be able to handle him easily.
It's an interesting point because, everything I'm seeing with Marquez works against him for a fight against Rios. The way to beat Rios is, like you said, he would have to box him. He would have to counterpunch him. And yet those two strengths that have, made Juan Manuel Marquez what he is what I think he's lacking right now. I don't think he's got the foot movement, so he's going to be more of a stationary target, which is perfect for Rios. And I don't think that his counterpunching ability, because what I perceive as being overtrained or over-muscled or whatever, I think he's lost that little, just a split second of speed, which, again, will be in Rios' favor. And because of, like you said, he likes to stand there and bang and counterpunch, he's in the fire with a guy like Rios. Rios, the knock on Rios and what happened to him against Abril is the fact that he didn't have a plan B. He didn't go to another plan. He kept trying to do something that Abril had his number on, and he did the same thing for 12 rounds, so...
But don't you think Rios, that's what Rios always does. He never has a plan B.
You're right. And I think Juan Manuel Marquez is way smarter. He'll know that. But it goes back to youth versus age. I mean, it always does in this sport, and...
I think exactly. I think that's where Rios has a very big chance.
And the thing,
the youth factor.
And the thing with Juan Manuel Marquez is that how does he want? Look, he's already said that this is his last year, and whether that's true or not, we all know that it should be his last year. So with that said, how does he want to go out? He could go out on his own terms. He could write his own ticket right now. Like we mentioned this McCluskey fight, everyone in the chat room saying, oh, that fight won't sell, it's not the big name. True, but they're the ones that are going to throw money at Juan Manuel Marquez. They're going to want him to come to England to fight and all of this stuff. So, he's trying to go out. He's trying to go out making the most money he can and look the best he possibly can. And a fight against a McCluskey may not make bad sense. It may be a move. And then if he can't get the Pacquiao fight, which everybody wants to throw boatloads of cash at him, maybe a Morales fight is the answer. I just think that at this point he needs to think about how he's going to look on his way out, because I don't want people to, or in my opinion, I wouldn't want people to remember him, searching for his mouthpiece on the canvas. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah,
he deserves better than that.
I think I think the Mike Tyson comparison is a good one. I think the Danny Williams fight and the Kevin McBride fight, we never had to. Personally, I could have lived my whole life without ever having to see those fights.
And you
as much as I love the photo, I have it on my wall of that Emily Harney took of Tyson on the canvas against Kevin McBride, just because, like we talked about when we, I'm a guy, I like the complexity of the sport and, the whole arc of a guy's career. As much as I love Mike Tyson when he started out, that photo just encapsulates the end. And I think that there's a beautiful, tragic drama to that image. And I think you're right. But especially these great fighters, it's sad to see it. I think what probably would be, and again, it probably would be crawling around on the canvas looking for the mouthpiece for Eric Morales. But in terms of significance, especially in Mexico, Marquez Morales in that new arena where he fought Saturday night, it would be like a Mexican Super Bowl. And then if Pacquiao gets by Tim Bradley, which I don't think is a foregone conclusion, then, Marquez Pacquiao again, and that's the end. Yeah. That I wouldn't mind that for Juan Manuel Marquez. The McCluskey fight, I mean, I'd like to see him get a bigger name than that, just because I think he does deserve it. Because, like I said, I do look at him as one of the top 3 or 4 guys in the sport.
Yeah, no doubt. Alice, great job. Hey, listen, I'm putting a call in to those kiddies that live with you, and they're going to make that picture disappear. I've had enough of that picture. So,
okay.
All right, my man. Great job. I'll talk to you later.
All right, take care, Billy C.
That's Alex Pierpaoli doing a great job, like he always does. I got to do my job and take a break.
Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. now has official merchandise available on TalkinBoxing.com. T-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, and mugs. And yes, even undergarments. Talkin' Boxing apparel is the perfect gift for the boxing fan in your life. Log on to www.talkinboxing.com. That's TalkinBoxing.com and place your order today.
Join us here for 2 hours as Billy and the gang do what they do best.
Every time I start talking about boxing, a white man got to pull Rocky Marciano out their ass. Rocky Marciano was good, but compared to Joe Louis, Rocky Marciano ain't.
Hit Joe Louis's ass.
Joe Louis was 75 years old when he fought.
Huh? What?
We're supposed to be talking boxing.
It's Talking Boxing with Billy C.
As Billy C. sits here in the multi-million-dollar Talkin' Boxing Studios, sipping a fine wine before you're even out of bed, you should be thinking, damn, I wish I had a mustache like his. It's the Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. show. He's Billy C., and you're not. Sucks to be you.
Now let's dig into our archives and hear a rare interview when Billy C. first became the champion of boxing talk radio. Hello, Billy C. As the new champ, can we ask you a few questions?
Why, certainly.
Okay, your fans would like to know how you and your corner have successfully walloped the competition.
We're not ordinary people. We're morons.
Anything else?
I'm a victim of circumstance.
Did your success finally come when you made the show 5 days a week for 2 hours? What do you think?
I'm trying to think, but nothing happens.
Now, please tell the listeners what you've learned from making it this far.
Certainly. If at first you don't succeed, keep on sucking till you do succeed.
Great words of wisdom, Billy C. Keep up the great work as the undisputed People's Champion with your show, Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. Any last words to anyone who's listening?
This is your fault, you bonehead.
And we're back. You're listening to the Three Stooges now. You're listening to the Talking Boxing with Billy C. radio show. You're watching us on the Fight Now television channel. Glad you could join us there. If you don't have the Fight Now channel on your sports channel lineup, well, you got to pick up the phone and ask for it. Call your local television provider and tell them that you want it added to your sports channel lineup. For all the information about Fight Now, You can find it on their website, www.fightnow.com. Speaking of now, joining us, the infamous, and I do mean infamous, Jos Santoliquito. What's up, Joe?
Hey, Bill. How you doing?
You're not mad about the Mets going in there and spanking you guys for that first game, right?
Oh no, by no means. I mean, I said before I thought the Phillies would have problems hitting, and they wouldn't be rolling over people, as a lot of people in this city, in Philadelphia, seem to expect.
Did you think the Mets would even come out of the game? I mean, listen, it's a joke. They have no depth. They have a team that's in serious trouble, but they kick off the first couple of weeks of the season looking the way all bad teams do in the beginning of the season. Do you think they'll be able to at least be competitive? Am I going to be able to watch some games? I don't even know how they did last night. Did they? Oh, they lost last night, right? The Phillies beat them like 9-4 or something, was it?
Yeah, I don't know. I know the Phillies were down 2-0 early, and I don't even know what they did.
What was that? What did you think? It was Friday Night Fights, and you weren't watching that game, or what, man? Come on, Santoliquito.
Well, San Francisco, I think it began at 10 o'clock.
Oh, I thought they were still playing the Phillies. See, that's what I know. But anyway, let's talk about the big fight from last week. First and foremost, before we talk about the Juan Manuel Marquez fight, a lot of talk about the Bam Bam Rios and Richard Abril fight. Most people think that Abril got totally robbed. As soon as the fight ended and before the announcements were made, I said to myself, this is going to be a lot closer than the announcers think. What did you think?
Well, I didn't see it. It was, remember, it was on pay-per-view.
Nobody. And I tell you, that was kind of a pay-per-view card that I was shocked. I'm curious to know what the buys are if they ever release it. I ended up buying it because a couple of streams I got just were too choppy. I can't stand it. So I ended up, drinking the Kool-Aid and had to pay whatever I paid for a high-def broadcast. I think it was like $49 or something. But
I wouldn't.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, I had to. But to tell you the truth, well, if you didn't see it, then you didn't see any of them? You didn't see clips of it or anything?
No, nothing.
No. Well,
I'll tell you what. My last week's been consumed by a word, Flyers.
Well, how they're in the first? What are they in the first level of the playoffs with hockey now, or second?
Quarterfinals. Yeah, and it is back to the Wild West of the 1970s, back to the Broad Street Bully days. The only difference is the Pittsburgh Penguins are the ones that are the instigators, the antagonizers, and they are winning the battle, but they are losing the war. They are down 3-0 in the best-of-7 series. I'm getting myself loaded up for Game 4 to cover tonight, and it's been a lot of fun. I'll tell you what. I wish some fighters in the ring with their gloved fists would go at each other like these two teams have gone at each other the first 3 games of the series. It's been exciting. It's been pretty very, 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 very entertaining, even for people that are non-hockey fans.
I actually am going to be doing a broadcast. I'm going to be doing the blow-by-blow commentating for a fight in Philly Friday night. So I don't even know where it is. I don't know what card it is. I just found out last night that it was actually the day before that it was a done deal. So I'm going to be in your neck of the woods, man. But we got a couple of fights coming up this weekend. Let's chat about. First and foremost, I won't mention ESPN's card, even though it's a good one. But I know you won't check.
Get out of here.
It is. It's actually a good one. Adonis Stevenson is taking on No Gonzalez, and No Gonzalez. I mean, Adonis Stevenson is getting all the credit for being a power puncher, all this stuff. But No Gonzalez is a tough fighter. I like the matchup. But Showtime's got Jermaine Taylor. He's coming back again, and he's fighting Khalib Truax. Now Truax is an undefeated fighter, but he's never fought anybody of note. How do you think Jermaine is?
I don't even want to. It came to a point at the end, Bill, when you could just breathe on his chin, and he was going to roll over. It was bad, and why he's coming back, I really don't know. Obviously, the thing that comes first and foremost is always money. He's lost his money. I know for a time there that he had it he had it going on. That he had the wife and the lifestyle, and I think he's a father. I think he may be a father a couple times over now. And again, it goes back to way back to the Tex Cobb Larry Holmes fight where Howard Cosell's. I remember it as a kid. This is an advertisement for the abolishment of the sport. Why turn around? I know legally, if he passes his tests and he goes through the process, that he has the right to turn around and pass things. Why go back? Why repeat? Why see this again? And it's do you you're a Mets fan, right?
Yeah, unfortunately.
God bless him. But do you want to see Willie Mays tripping in the outfield again? Going for a ball. Again, it's another bad childhood memory. I'm wondering who the old man is, and I think he was in left field that day in the playoffs. Who's the old man? Losing his balance, tripping over there. I didn't see Willie Mays in his heyday. I mean, obviously, as you get older and you find out the greatness of someone, I'm not saying by any means. I'm not going to put Jermaine Taylor in the category of Willie Mays. What I am saying, though, is that there comes a time when your time is past. And Jermaine Taylor was a good fighter and did some pretty incredible things. I thought he legitimately beat, I think the second time he beat Bernard Hopkins. The second time they fought. The first time, I actually thought Bernard beat him. But he did some very, very noteworthy things. I thought at the rate he was going, he was a borderline Hall of Famer, and then obviously everything came crashing down with the Super Six, and even prior to that with Kelly Pavlik. But it just, and Jermaine seems to be a pretty good guy. It's one of those things where regardless of what people want to tell you, want to think, Bill, doing it and working and the various media things that I cover and I'm involved with, is you root for guys. I mean, you're not going to go around. You're not going to sit on press row and just go bananas. Yeah, kick his ass. But there are certain guys, and regardless of what any media person ever tells you, Bill, they have their favorites. In all sports and all walks of life, it's just human nature. And Jermaine seemed to be a pretty decent guy, a pretty straight up kind of guy, and then to turn around and just. I thought he was doing the right thing. I thought he got out at the right time. I do find it interesting, by the way. I don't believe he has any affiliation now with Lou DeBell. Lou's the one that promoted him, that managed him, that pushed him along. And I think, and I know this for a fact, I know Lou had serious concerns there when, there was a time, I guess you could just blow on Jermaine Taylor's chin. He was going to kill over.
Well, he looks good. He's always looked good in shape. He's fighting a safe guy. I personally think they're trying to get another Pavlik fight, but we'll wait and see. But the other fight that's on the card, we were going to see 3, but we're only going to see 2, is a guy that I know you like. You like Lara, or Slendy Lara. He's taking on Ronald Hearns, of course, Tommy's son, who is starting to, he's starting to come around. I mean, he's no Tommy Hearns, but I kind of like the matchup. I wanted to see Lara in the ring since the last debacle in Atlantic City. And I think this is a good fight for him, and I also think it's a good opportunity for Ronald Hearns. How do you see that one going?
Well, I did see Hearns. I saw Hearns, and I thought he was making some nice strides. But Lara just... it's a shame. I think this poor guy... I just hope for his sake he's not put in the ring again, and again, it's boxing, put in the ring to put on a good show, to do everything he's supposed to do, and then Ronald Hearns in the end gets the decision. That's my greatest fear with Lara. I saw that. I just can't get that out of my head. Paul Williams and Paul Williams' hookup. I don't think Ronald Hearns isn't represented by what's his name? Is he?
Who? What's his name? Lara, I thought was with Goosen, right? Isn't Lara with Goosen? Or I know Goosen's got Paul Williams, so Lara must be with. He's not with Top Rank. Neither one of them are with Top Rank. So I'm not sure.
But
Maybe Gary Shaw.
Maybe Al Heyman, is he?
Oh, you know what? I honestly Ronald Hearns or Lara?
Because it seems as if the Al Heyman fighter seems to get a little nudge, little push.
Yeah, well, there's no question about that. But I like that matchup. But there's a really good one on Saturday, and that's one of your favorite fighters, Eric Morale. He's taking on Abner Mares, and Mares is moving up.
That's my boy.
Yeah,
Abner's my boy.
Well, Abner moved up in weight. He gave up his bantamweight title, and this is actually the first fight he's having in super bantamweight division for a world title against Eric Morale. This is a good matchup, and you know, I mean, a lot is said about Abner Mares and the hitting below the belt and all of that, but when you really look at his record, he's fought the toughest fighters in the bantamweight division, and for all intent and purposes has come out on top. And I think this is a natural evolution for him, so to speak, to move up. And he's not testing the waters a little bit. He's jumping right in against a guy like Morale.
Hey, please tell me this is going to be on Showtime.
Yes, sir.
That's music to my ears. I would pay good money to see Abner actually get someone decent, but this is the last straw for Morale. So Abner's going to be fighting a desperate fighter. I mean, Eric Morale one time was a stud, borderline pound for pound fighter, and we both know what sent him crashing down. I mean, he did what? I think he did 2 years, 3 years.
I don't think it was 3. I think it was maybe 18 months or something like that. Actual time, I think. I don't know. I don't recall, to be honest with you.
Well, he's built himself up the right way. He's come back. Right now, I just think Abner's a freight train. I think he's rolling along. He's doing all the things that I was the first guy to ever write about Abner, and this is where my soft spot. My cold heart comes out for guys like Abner. I mean, this is a kid that was living on the streets, literally living on the streets. It's funny that you hear certain stories in the world of boxing, and a lot of people, they all have stories. But the thing that got me about Abner is just when you think you've heard it all, then you hear Abner's tale of homelessness, of the joy of here's a 6-7-year-old kid, homeless, 6-7 years old, at that age, out on the streets. And joy to him was a carton of melted ice cream. And he and his brothers would wait out behind like a Walmart or something. And, for certain days when they would discard the food, they literally picked food, Bill, out of trash bins, and they existed off of that. And I know your listeners and hardcore fans are like, what about the fights and the fighters? Well, this is something there, and it's a tale that tells a lot about the kid. And it says you got to kill him to beat him. You're gonna have to bring a bazooka in the ring to beat Abner Mares. He's going to be on a hell of a ride. And that past of his is always there. He does not want to be the starving kid again. He literally knows what it's like to starve. He literally knows what it's like to put his hand in a carton of goo and call it joy. That's a pretty damn good line by me, isn't it?
Yeah, you might have something there.
And this kid came through that. I mean, like I said, every fighter has a tragic tale. But Abner's tale is a little bit deeper than I think the next guy's. And I remember him telling me this. I'm like, you got to be kidding me, Abner. You got to be. He says no. It was the way it was, and it's funny. I did the piece for Ring Magazine, and some years later, it got picked up by the Los Angeles Times. The same story, written a little bit differently. I obviously like to think my story was better. But Abner's past says a lot about Abner, and maybe that even explains why sometimes you get the borderline low blows and things like that, because he's willing to turn around sometimes and do anything to win. And it kind of cracks me up too, because you got guys out there, Trinidad. would turn around and hit you in the noogies. You know, when and you have a Bernard Hopkins where the ref's on the right side and Bernard will hit you low on the left. You know, just below the belt. He'll hit you not in the canoogies there, but he'll hit you below the belt in the hip. You know, if the ref's on the right, or if the ref's on the left, he'll hit you with his right. You know, slightly below the belt on the hip. I mean, it's an old school way. I'm not excusing it by any means, but I'm saying though, you got guys in there that are willing to turn around and do anything to win, and Abner's one of them. And it's something that I like and admire about him. He's going to put on another great fight. It's going to be another great war. But I think at the stage Eric Morel is in, you know, even though he's the preserved peaches to a point because his little stay in the pokey, but I don't think he just has enough in the tank to withstand any kind of sustained attack by Abner, and Abner's got to attack.
Well, we'll wait and we'll check it out on Saturday, and it's definitely going to be a good one. So, but
I'm looking forward to that. Now, is there a co-feature on that card?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. Well, I'll tell you right now. Actually, I am sure because I have it right here. Oh no, I don't. I just have the main event. I just have the main event on my notes.
So tell me, how well attended was the Marquez fight this week?
Well, the Marquez portion of the fight, which was in Mexico, had I think 20-something thousand live gate, and then you shift over to Vegas where they had Bam Bam Rios as the main event, and
there was 2 people there.
They had 3,000 at the. They claimed they had 2,300 or something like that, and or it might have been close to 3,000. They claim were paid, but every camera shot you saw of the arena, it looked empty, man. And then they shifted over to Mexico, and you know, clearly it was just packed to the gills, you know.
Well, Marquez is still a name, and that's fine. Here's the question, though: Does the 20,000 that packed the stands in Mexico to watch Marquez fight, does that exceed the number of pay-per-views?
It may have.
For that fight,
it may have.
That's a hell of a. That's a great. Over under. I don't know. I mean, I know again. There's your hardcore fans out there, and God bless you for to shell out the bucks for that. But yeah, I got I've been running around on this Flyers Penguins train, which I don't know if you're a big hockey fan, but anybody that's watched any of these 3 games. I will guarantee you they probably would have been there certainly were more fisticuffs. There was certainly a lot more fist flying than I'm sure any of the fights over this past weekend. It was pretty damn exciting.
Well, you could very well be right about that, but I don't follow hockey that much. But anyway, Joe, you fill us in on the fights that take place on the ice next week, and we'll also talk about the Maris Morale fight. All coming up next week. All right, brother?
Super, Bill.
All right, man. Take care.
Bye-bye.
That's the infamous Jos Santoliquito giving us his thoughts on the Abner Maris and Eric Morales fight, which is taking place this weekend. Looking forward to that one. I did not get a chance to see the Juan Manuel Marquez or the Bam Bam Rios fights from this past weekend. Hey, I want to take a minute here and give a shout-out to my man Brett. And I say my man Brett because that's Dax's son. It's his birthday, and I wanted to wish him a happy birthday. From what I understand, he's the only Billy C fan in the house. Him and his poor mom have to sneak and be Billy C fans because their father bans me from the house. So I want to give a shout-out to my main man and give him a happy birthday. And hope all things are going great for Dax and family. So, and you know what? It's my fault. I mean, Dax was trying to remind me. We talked about it yesterday. And my mind is like a sieve lately, so I should have done it a little earlier. So have a good birthday, my man. And I wanted to make sure we got that out before we ran out of time. Yeah. Before we ran out of time. But anyway, speaking of Showtime, we were talking about the Abner Maris fight, and I probably have the information that Joe just asked me right here under another set of notes. I didn't know if we got right off the top of my head. I know that Librado Andrade's on that card. let's see, who else? Real quick, we got Esmilio Marino against David Lamora. He's on that card. Of course, the main event, which we mentioned. Also, you have Librado Andrade on that card. You have, Roland Bryant, who's fighting Andrade. I guess he's the sacrificial lamb they're bringing in. And that's it, the top of my mind. Well, you got other people on the card, but I think I'm pretty sure the only live event on the main on Showtime is going to be the Abner Maris. Now, you can catch the complete undercard on Showtime Extreme, and I love that they're doing that. They have Librado Andrade, which is going to be on the undercard on Showtime Extreme. Librado Andrade against Bryant. I told you, I didn't tell you, Francisco Vargas against Rafael Laura, and Chris Pearson against Luis Ramos Jr. That's actually a pretty good matchup. Both of those fighters are on the way up, so I'm glad to see Pearson and Ramos Jr. fighting each other. And Antonio Escalante is going to be on the card as well. So if you're looking, if you enjoy the undercards, which I like to do, man, I like to check out the undercards as often as I can. You can do it on Showtime Extreme. So, and just a reminder to everyone, we are going to be doing a live broadcast May 12th, coming at you from Tampa. With Chevelle Fisted Steel Halbach against Terry Blair for a world title. That's right, the IFBA World Welterweight title, and in women's boxing, that's a major, major title. We're looking forward to that opportunity, and we're going to bring it to you live right here. So make sure you check it out. And also, if you're interested in getting tickets for that event, you can get them by visiting our website, www.billycboxing.com. Click the fight poster. Also, one other thing real quick. We are doing a live broadcast Friday night from Philadelphia. So please check LDL TV for all the information about that, ldltv.com. I know that it will be on that site, and it will also be streamed on Ustream. So if you're, want to record the Friday night fights and want to watch me stumbling, bumbling, and rumbling all through the broadcast of the Philly fights, do that. I'll have more information for you about the card tomorrow on tomorrow's show. And just a program update, we will not be doing a live broadcast on Friday, but all the podcasters, well, actually all the radio stations and TV outlets will be getting a show. Unfortunately, the podcasters, well, you're not going to get one because we're not doing a live one.
Wake up. It's time for It's too early for a trivia question.
Don't forget, next week, man, we got a really good young fighter coming on. I can't wait to talk with him. Haven't spoken to him in a while from Canada, T-Boy Broche. So make sure you tune in for that. Today's It's Too Early for a Trivia Question. Question is being brought to us by Star Boxing and their ESPN card that's taking place on May 18th at the Times Union Center in Albany, New York. If you want to get tickets, man, it's real easy. Just visit our website, www.billycboxing.com, and click the fight poster to the Raymond Serrano and Kareem Mayfield fight, and it'll direct you right where you can get tickets. Tell them that Billy C sent you and demand the Billy C discount. So Star Boxing on May 18th. Today's It's Too Early for a Trivia Question. We got the Evander Holyfield Way. It's a great book that's been given to us to give to you by PrizeFightingBooks.com. And it's all yours, man. We got a couple more copies of that. It's all yours if you know this answer. And the question is, who won the most fights between 1930 and 1939? Who won the most fights between 1930 and 1939? If you know that answer, email me the correct answer, Billy@TalkinBoxing. That's TalkinBoxing.com. So if you know who fought the most fights between 1930 and 1939, email me the correct answer, Billy@TalkinBoxing, TalkinBoxing.com right now.
This day in boxing history.
And finally, this day in boxing history is being brought to us by Campanero and Tomkovich. If you're looking for a lawyer, use the ones that keep me out of trouble, and that's Campanero and Tomkovich. Give them a call today, 845-221-4099. Don't forget, tell them that Billy C said, I'll pick up the consultation fee. They love it when you say that because they know they're not going to get a penny out of me. 845-221-4099, Campanero and Tomkovich. On this day, April 18th, back in 1969, Jose Naples knocks out Billy Backus in the fourth round to win the world welterweight title, and it took place on this day, April 18th, in 1969, in Inglewood, California. Billy Backus is may be coming to our Hall of Fame in November. He was very interested in doing that. So, anyway, that's what happened on this day. Billy Backus didn't come out too well on that night, but that's what happened on this day back in 1969. Hey, man, I got one more thing to say. You know what it is? Make sure you tune in tomorrow morning, same bat time, same bat channel. There's only one channel, the Fight Now channel. Call your local television provider right now and tell them you want the Fight Now channel added to your sports channel lineup. For all the information about the channel, you can find it at their website, www.fightnow.com. See you all tomorrow. Ciao, baby.